I'm asking you to give me the death sentence.
This is Steven Lorenzo. He is 64 years old. In December 2003, roughly 20 years ago, he murdered and tortured two men by the names of Jason Galehouse and Michael Wachholtz. He was found guilty in 2004 for drugging and sexually assaulting 9 victims and was sentenced to 200 years in prison. However, the mothers of the two deceased men never got the justice they deserved, because for 20 years it was very difficult to convict him of murder. As of last year, he pleaded guilty to 2 counts of murder. This is a video in the courthouse on the day of sentencing.
Are you then representing yourself pro se, ready to proceed this morning?
Yes, most definitely am.
Is the state ready to proceed?
That's right.
The friends of Jason Galehouse, one of the victims, are in the courthouse today, and it will be important to remember as we move along.
It appears that everybody is ready to proceed to sentencing. Oh, Mr. Lorenzo, yes, you're raising your hand.
Do I get to say something before sentencing?
I will allow you the opportunity, yes, sir.
Okay, very good.
Steven Lorenzo raises his hand and asks the judge if he can say something to the courthouse before they inevitably announce his sentence.
First off, I'd like to thank Mr. Gonzalez, Mr. Sonardi, and everybody else that was part of the defense team. They were absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. And I want to thank them from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
Steven Lorenzo starts off by thanking his defense team, although he chose to represent himself during most of the trial. A lot of criminals who have unfavorable verdicts usually blame or think their defense team could have done better. So it is strange, but not the strangest thing that is about to happen.
Can I address the state attorneys?
You may.
Yes. I'd like to let you guys know that I have no animosity against you. You did your job, and you did a very good job of prosecuting this case. So I want to thank you for that, because I appreciate your fairness to me, and that's what I appreciate.
Steven Lorenzo thanks the prosecution, the people in charge of putting him in jail, the people that are doing everything they can to make sure he spends his life in prison. This is definitely not someone that is usually thanked. The reason he is thanking them is because he is a narcissistic sociopath. He is a very skilled manipulator and has a lack of empathy. If he was even a bit remorseful, he would have apologized to the victims and their families. Instead, he chose to address the prosecution and give them a sort of pat on the back.
In this lifetime, I'm the bad guy, you're the good guy. Maybe the next lifetime the role will be reversed, who knows. But I want to let you know that I wish you all well.
By referring to himself as the bad guy and the prosecution as the good guys, he may be distancing himself emotionally or psychologically from his own responsibility, minimizing his personal agency in the crimes committed. The mention of a possible role reversal in a future lifetime could be seen as a form of escapism or fantasy. It may represent a way for the individual to entertain the idea of redemption or a fresh start in a hypothetical future existence, detached from the current reality and its repercussions.
Okay. And to the judge, I want to thank you, because you have had incredible tolerance and patience and fairness to me while I stumbled my way through this whole process. And I want to appreciate that. I want you to know that, and I want that on the record for the Florida Supreme Court.
He then thanks the judge, the one who will ultimately decide his fate. This is most likely a manipulation tactic because he is about to ask for a big favor.
I'm seeking the death penalty. It's in my best interest, basically, because it's a comfort. I'll be living a lot more comfortable than I would in the federal system, living on death row, believe it or not. And of course, that may sound selfish, but I've lived in a private cell for the last 5 years, and I'm going to have a private cell on death row. At my age, I want to be comfortable. I want my privacy. That's what I want. So that's what I'm doing. It may sound selfish, but that's the way it is. You live for today. You don't live for the past. You live for today.
Yes, you heard it correctly. He has just asked for the death penalty. Steven Lorenzo claims that on death row, he will have a private cell and that it would be much better for him. He will have his privacy. He will be more comfortable and relaxed. Also, he will not have to worry about dealing with other more aggressive and violent inmates in the general population that may assault him based on the severity of his crimes.
So I'm asking you to give me the death sentence, because that'll be more comfortable for me to live out my lifetime. I know I can be on death row for about 10 or 15 years, which I think is crazy.
Steven Lorenzo is right in stating that it is possible to be on death row for 10 to 15 years. Actually, in Florida, the average time spent on death row is 13.2 years. He is now 64. If he spends 13 years on death row, he will be 77.
But as far as I see it, it's just euthanasia. I already have a death sentence. Everybody in this room has a death sentence. So as far as I'm concerned, you're just offering me a euthanasia that I'm looking to do willingly. That's all it really comes down to.
Steven Lorenzo says that he already has a death sentence, and so does everyone else in the courtroom. By suggesting that everyone else is essentially facing death in some form, he is attempting to downplay the severity of his own situation. He is a narcissistic sociopath, and this coping mechanism allows him to maintain a sense of control or lessen the emotional impact of his impending execution. He is trying to convince himself that his fate is really no different from the other people in the courtroom. He also says he sees it as euthanasia and not necessarily as death. This shows that he is detaching himself psychologically from his own execution.
And so I'm asking you to do that. So, and I'm going to try to speed up this process so I don't have to wait 15 years because I got better things to do in my time.
Steven Lorenzo saying he has better things to do with his time is a clear-cut narcissistic statement. He is prioritizing his own desires, goals, or sense of superiority above all else.
The sooner that I get euthanized, as far as I'm concerned, the faster I can get, the sooner I can get, fetch myself a new body and come back again, a fresh body. That's how I look at it, because that's how it is. That's how it's spiritual work. We're eternal beings. So the way I look at it is, the sooner I euthanize, the sooner I can come back. I've got better things to do with my time than to hang out and spend the next 15, 20 years on death row or in any prison system.
He finishes his statement, and if you notice, he never uses the words execution or death. He only says euthanasia because in his mind it is of lesser severity.
So that's all I really have to say.
All right.
The interesting thing about this case is that Steven Lorenzo already knew he was getting the death sentence. He is accused of horrific crimes and being taken to the highest levels of justice in the Supreme Court of Florida. Victims' families have been waiting for this for 20 years for justice, so the only real outcome is the death penalty. He knew he was getting the death penalty already, so why is he asking the judge for it? The answer is quite disturbing. Even at his last moments, he wants to remain in control. What Steven Lorenzo just did is set the atmosphere in the courtroom. Nobody in the courtroom can unhear what he just said. In front of the victims' families, in front of the prosecution, and in front of the cameras, he just detailed how much better his life would be on death row. Therefore, when the judge sentences him to the death penalty, it will be as if that is what he wanted, and at the most crucial time in the last 20 years for the families and friends of the victims, he would have gotten what he wanted. The judge would be doing him a big favor. Extremely disturbing but textbook definition of a narcissistic sociopath. He made it about what he wants, and Steven Lorenzo is about to get what he wants.
I sentence you, Mr. Lorenzo, to death. That is the punishment that you deserve
Thank you.
for these horrific crimes. You shall be transferred to the Department of Corrections to await your execution. You have 30 days to appeal this sentence. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Your Honor. I
And
appreciate it.
Mr. Lorenzo, may God have mercy on your soul.
My soul is fine. Thank you, sir.
Lorenzo thanks the judge for the sentence, saying he appreciates it, and when the judge wishes mercy on his soul, he says his soul is fine, thank you. Even at this last simple remark, this character type is not able to let anyone except themselves have the last word. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed my analysis. Like and subscribe if you feel it was deserved. Click here for more videos like this.